Coming live from Mumbai, our guest today. Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts either through their industry insights and information or simply learning from them. And today we have Rishi Chaddha, entrepreneur, edupreneur, project management consultant. Welcome to the show, Rishi.
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming in. And I obviously we will discuss about why is it so important to always remember it is someone else's money when executing a project. But for everybody, a lot of people from smaller places, bigger places, and from different industries are also watching it. So can you just tell us what exactly is project management and then what a project management consultant is?
Right, Ajay. First of all, it's a great opportunity to be on your fabulous show. The kind of efforts you're taking to bring people from around the world and express their experiences, express their uh, learnings, and share with the entire world. And to be on the show for me with my pal of childhood days, it's another added advantage as well as a lot of responsibility, as well as I take it as a very positive takeaway, a great opportunity. So beginning with the project management related principles and the project management related concepts, I do not want to drag this session into an extremely boring textbook style, conceptual understanding. But the first one word would be I need to borrow something from where it all comes from, and it took me years and years and decades to decode the meaning of projects and project managements when I became a member of the so-called organization PMI, which I am a regular member of, as well as whom I owe my allegiance for the ongoing learnings.
Right.
What happened with me, as it happens with everyone, is that it took a while, after a lot of struggle, to get into these things. And the one liner which came our way was that for doing projects, it's a simple endeavor, or it's some kind of a work which has got a start date and an end date. And in between those two, you got to produce a product, you got to produce a service, or you got to produce a result. And when you produce those results, they're going to benefit the entire society. How do you do that? You make use of certain available resources, very stringent, very time bound deliverables, and making use of the most obtain resources and money and time. You got to produce the best results to make all the stakeholders happy. So that is all about some kind of value to be delivered. But coming to project management as such, I mean, this is the next extension, or the next, the project related principle, wherein you set yourself to behave in a certain way. You take over certain fundamentals, you become a part of certain frameworks, and you borrow certain knowledge based on which you're going to perform with all those responsibilities and all those principles and all the respect and all the processes which help you to deliver a project in a professional way. So project management is a very simple theory. It has been happening around the world for ages and ages. And some of the things we will discuss during the day would be, it doesn't take much to understand it, but unfortunately, to follow them, it takes a while. It takes a little bit of, struggle to become accustomed and used to doing that. And I hope your session will bring forth certain exemplification which could help us understand how you do it in a much simpler way.
So, what sort of a projects come under this particular project management stuff?
That's a key to begin with. I mean, you name an industry, you're speaking to a person. For him, even buying vegetables is a project.
Okay.
And you name an industry, whether you start with IT, or you start with the railways, or you start with oil and gas, energy. You discuss construction of big bridges, big buildings, construction of cities, smart cities. You see a lot of hype around the high-speed rail, which is going on in the country. You speak about the metros. You speak about so many mega projects coming up across the world, places like the Middle East. Everything is a project, small to big. And the psyche of the person speaking to you is such that project management has pushed him into, doing everything in that particular framework, and in that particular uh, knowledge area. So for me, if I have to do a small, maybe a few hours bound project, or some work has to be delivered in a few days' time, it is all about project. And that is why I, in particular, come from a background wherein most of my projects have been from the energy industry.
Okay.
And that is one of the most organized industries, I suppose, across the world, because they have done a lot of work. They have done a lot of back calculation. They have done a lot of standardization, wherein you get into the nitty gritty of doing work in a very very well defined framework, in a very organized fashion, and there's hardly anything which is left to uncertainties. And then you become accustomed to doing it that way. And if you are ready to adapt that into your day-to-day work, day-to-day responsibilities, it makes even more sense. So that is how I speak. I would take it as the kind of projects we deal with.
Okay. So how does it start? If somebody say some particular industry, like in your case, it's about energy. Uh, Anybody comes to you, they know about your credentials. Uh, they come to you, you pitch for those projects, and then obviously there must be, is there a bidding sort of a stuff, or you just straightway get onto the job? And how do you do it, means how do you plan from day one? Say suppose somebody who has got the skills
Mhm.
but they don't know how to go about it, so somebody who wants to bid for projects across the country or across the industries that he or she wants to, how do they
Okay,
do it for a layperson who got the skills but don't know how to do it or how to go about it in a technical way?
okay. That's see your question, as I take it, is I would like to begin with a story.
Hmm.
And I used to get a lot of backup knowledge from people in and around me. And what I learned from them was that nobody will come fully cooked up, fully well prepared from the mother's womb. You got to accept a lot of people raw in the industry, and groom them in the shortest possible time to be able to work on certain things which demand certain skills. Now, as far as my story goes, uh, I was not pulled into projects straight away. I mean, when I was a lad of 22 years and just out of college, 1994, at least for next 3 or 4 years, I was totally uh, mesmerized. I was not in a position to understand what is the right way forward. I mean, I come from a background wherein it was a conscious family decision that we do business. And I started as a businessman, manufacturing scaffoldings in my father's shop in the year 1993-94. I had not even graduated. And it took me at least 3 or 4 years to bring my anxieties to rest, because I was raw. I mean, I was not understanding what the industry is holding. business, okay. I had the lot of butterflies to be into business. I wanted to do excel in business, but I was not satisfied, self-satisfied myself. The mojo, as you say, was not coming. It was not with me. So I set foot, keeping the industry running or the shop running. I set foot into exploring things in and around me. That is what happens with whoever comes to me today. And when I set foot into the industry, in 4 years' time, I embarked upon a wonderful project which was going around very near my home. And there was an American, giant building a fiberglass plant. And I became a part of the Tatas who were the consultants on that project. But that is not where I discovered my mojo. By the time we completed that project in a year's time, we got a very strange appreciation from the Americans. The owners of the project, who had come all the way miles away, they appreciated us for having saved them multi-$1,000 on the project. And the project manager of the project sends us a letter one fine day, congratulating the entire team. I was a part of that team. I was a very junior part of that team, just 4 years of experience. And he says, see, we've been appreciated for the deliverables. And more so, we have been appreciated for the way we have saved them so much. And you all are part of the team. So that was the first time I did not even know the name of the game. What you call PM today it wasn't in my mind then. And coming from a business background and trying to find your feet in the industry, this is the first time you find something which gives you a sense of satisfaction, a sense of achievement. You're a part of the team who has saved certain $1,000 for somebody. It sounds great. It sounds like a huge achievement for you. And that made me continue with the Tatas for next 6 years' time within India, doing projects in the refineries, doing projects on ID parks. They put me on one of their very flagship kind of a project. They were the first to have built a terminal in Bombay. And I was a leading part of that terminal for around 3 years. And then that sense of grooming myself into these projects, that went on increasing with time. And then, of course, after that, I took leapfrogged into the Middle Eastern market. I worked in all the countries of the Middle East. But it took me around good decade or so to decode the name of what was my mojo, and that was dealing into projects and dealing into project management. And then around 15 years later, I got certified as a PM from this ACE organization, PMI. And from there, it's been about, I would say, another decade and a half that we've been associated doing things in a particular way, as PMI suggests, and delivering to them some of the best conceptual and best practicable things, and the way everybody shares on the institute's portals. Apart from that, as you said, if somebody walks into me today, I'm happy to accept them as a part of my team, even raw.
Okay.
Because I know for sure that over the years, I must have worked with at least maybe 500, 600 disciples who really benefited and learned the game in the shortest possible time, some of them in a few months' time. The last big project we did was of the tune of 400 crores. And I was having a team of 36 in my team. And I mean, the reciprocation after we left the project, because this is how we do projects. We go organize, team up, and then we depart, we disintegrate. So the love and the affection which keeps coming to you even after you left them, that speaks. and then they get their mojo from us, because what we did, we took time to find and struggle and groom. It becomes a part of them. So that is the the whole purpose of the game, and that is what keeps us running.
Right. So who can, suppose if, as you said, you are ready to accept anybody raw. So what sort of people can be part of a project management team? Suppose
Yep.
it's a person in Jharkhand, कोई
Yep.
झारखंड में है, and he or she is capable in particular one area or two areas. How do they know they can be a part of your team, and how can they do that?
Okay.
Otherwise, they are
So
working in isolation and trying to find clients only locally, जहां पे भी उनको possibility है.
I'll put two branches to this answer. The first branch is, normally we do advertise based on the projects which are coming to our hands, and they apply. But uh, as of now, until now, we have been sourcing uh, people with or without experience, who necessarily want to be, at least at the beginning, they want to be planners. So a very key component of being into project management is being a good planner. So if I ask you, who's the best planner you have seen in your life from the word
Okay.
plan, I don't know what your answer would be. But over the years, when we were working, one of the finest project managers I worked under, he gave us a session and he asked us this question, and we came up with various answers. And he said, the best planner who works around you is the person who handles your kitchen. So, and the reason is, how many times do you come up with an excuse or a complaint that you're falling short of any necessity, any deliverable? Hardly any time. The behind the scene aspect of this is, the plan working in a homemaker's brain is such that he or she constantly is keeping on evolving and trying to make available every component of running that kitchen. So when we select people, we try to first ascertain, does he have the anxiety, does he have the feel, or does he have the grudge to be in that frame of mind? That means, when I give an assignment to somebody, it hardly takes much time for us to find that. When I give an assignment to somebody, how much to the depth he would go and find out how to dig into the uncertainties and the available of the available resources, and then fetch it. So there's no bottom line to what level of graduation or what level of expertise he possesses. But the raw planner start that way. In fact, in the West, a planner is not called a planner until he does a lot of running, and they become runners first, and then they become planners. So we learned on the job that first put people on the running business. And
Okay.
when we are doing a lot of detailing of this session, you'll come to know, first is the stage when a person becomes a runner, and then he grooms into a planner. In fact, I call myself a planner more than a project manager or a consultant, because I take pride in being called a planner. But I was not a planner when I started. I would leave half the things undone and return to my pavilion, wherein my bosses would say, no, you've not done this X, Y, and Z. Then I go back to the field and do them and then come back. So being a runner is like, you should have a taste for doing whatever you are being asked for. And it could be any industry. As I said, it could be any of the industries. I'll quote certain examples when we move further. So that is how we select the people and we form teams. But I would like to put it that we form fresh teams on every project we do, and then we disintegrate at the end of the project, and then we go to the next one.
So it is called project management, but actually there is a lot of planning in it.
Definitely, there's a lot of planning in it.
So what is planning the biggest aspect of Any particular project management execution?
Okay, see, that is a misnomer. I
Then
mean,
then
it
it
is
should be
not.
planning management. Why project management?
You're right. I mean, see, it's right. It's a very pertinent question. It is like there's no project management without planning, but
Right.
not necessarily a planner will be a good project manager. There are much better project managers even without. But what happens is that the planners and the planning fraternity finds it easier to do project management because of the mathematics behind it. There's certain amount of very simple mathematics behind it. Now, I would quote a good example of what happened to me when I was just 22, and we had a requirement of certain fasteners in our shop. And when you walk out of college, you don't know what this stuff is. So I went for purchasing these fasteners in the heart of the city in Mumbai, place called Nagdevi.
Okay.
This is one place, mind you, where you can find every limb of the engineering industry. And I go into a shop, a store, a huge store, which I came to know has every kind, every type, every size, every quality of a fastener. I ordered them. There was a big bunch of people, maybe all family members. The person on the desk orders rack number so and so, bunch number so and so, box number so and get me so many. The first thing which strikes me, then when the fasteners come in front of me, I ask them for a discount after having asked the price. And you won't believe, 1994, there was no MS Excel, there was no PowerPoint, there were no software. The guy didn't have a computer in front of him. Neither had I seen a computer in those days. My friend, there goes his hand inside his drawer and he pulls out a small notebook, flips some pages, and he reaches exact page where he has written for that particular fastener, who's the manufacturer, what is the price of the raw material, what is the manufacturing cost, what is the transport cost, and how much is his profit, few paise. And he shows that entire calculation to me and says, tell me where should I offer you the discount. That was the first time I came across a live example of planning, even without any computers to our disposal.
Okay.
And you should imagine this is the essence of good business as well. You know, today when I look back into that incident, I for sure understand that is good planning. So that is good planning because he has not left any uncertainty addressed on the paper as well as in his business, and that level of clarity of the goods he's selling. I'm sure they have, from that big store which I saw, that they must have groomed into
Did
multi.
you get a discount?
Yes, he did offer me a discount on something, but that is, that is his business policy. We call it a reserve. So that was,
Okay.
we did, I had sufficient numbers to be sourcing. So that is another part of the story. But that is exactly what the planning is. I mean, when we go purchasing vegetables for the kitchen, how many things we leave behind uncertain? That's not planning. And this is exactly what we do today. When we
Okay.
do project management, planning starts with the project management because on the first day you don't know everything. The floodgates, when they open, the uncertainties, they become more and more clear only as the project unfolds. And on the first day, when the first person who works on the project ideally is the team of planners, on the first day the maximum uncertainties which you unfold help you to do better in the future part of your project, and that is what helps you to successfully deliver the project. So that is what I was saying. We try to judge from a person when he walks to us, how much will he deliver in tapping those uncertainties? So that is why
Right.
planning is important for project management. But then this is how the mathematics works.
Right. So where does technology come in project management? What's
See,
its role?
for me, I would like to put it that technology is just a jargon.
Okay.
Although I should not say so because I have been personally myself involved with a particular tool that's almost 20 years old, which my team and myself have been using. I've seen various versions of that tool, and that is one of the finest time scale logic tools I've seen, and it really is a part of our psyche. But that is a planning tool. But why I said the first statement that technology is just a jargon, because in the name of technology, there's a lot of unwanted things being sold in the market today.
Okay.
So you would have seen a lot of things which come from technology, very superficial, very cosmetic. I mean, they are very color glossy, and then these people who sell technology, they go to the principals and they say, "See, I can form this kind of a graph, I can do this analytics, I can do so and so," without directly linking it back to the nitty gritty of the game.
Who
But the
sells
tool
these
I've got,
technologies? Who
that
sells
is
these
that is
technologies?
okay. This is see there are a lot of startups coming up with these technologies. We don't go into the name game, but there are a lot of people trying to pitch into being solution providers. Why I'm saying so, and I don't want to sound negative on that, is because you have a chance. You see a dearth somewhere. You start with certain technology. It is not necessarily that is the best. What you should explore is what is already existing in the market and how far that technology is successful. So that is one game which that jargon thing comes into my mind.
But
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 definitely
Rishi,
technology helps.
but
Let me
Rishi,
let
but
me.
you must be using some technology must be either useful in helping you complete your projects, execute your projects, or it must be saving money for you.
100%, hundred
Yeah.
percent. See,
Can you?
now as I said, we don't do things on paper now.
Okay.
In the age old days when we graduated out of college, I mean it was totally paper based. But
Right.
even then, do you think projects were not successful? They were highly successful. Today, after the 2 or 3 decades of so much of technology being used and so much of advancement being made, projects are still unsuccessful, and there's a lot of failure happening around us. Have we used the right technology? So my purpose of the defining the technology part is not to promote certain package or tool and not to bring down something else. What I want to
Right.
say over here is definitely today I cannot do things without technology.
Okay.
But with technology, the optimum usage of that technology, the success of that package, the success of that tool has to be properly explored. You go from industry to industry, from company to company, you go from place to place, and you see everybody using a different tool doing the same work.
Okay.
That's not
So,
that's not
is
optimization.
there any substitute for technology as such? Suppose I don't have that much of money in doing my projects. Is there a substitute that you can think of?
Look, that is where the whole game, happens. I'll give you an example of a great company called Honeywell, or I'll give you an example
Right.
of a great company called Boeing. Now they do their planning for delivering their products. If you walk into their offices and you want to get an order booked for yourself, on the day you walk in, they'll tell you if they have a slot for delivering your product in next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years time, because they are using technology to the right extent,
Okay.
wherein everything on their schedules is absolutely clearly earmarked. And that is the time scale logic I'm talking about. It's very important that we are clear about our delivery targets. That is project management.
Okay.
Project management is not that there's a hanky panky, you have a so-called, yes, maybe, ho jayega. Doesn't happen that way. When we say it is 2026, it is 2026. I'm sitting in a place where I'm seeing a metro coming up last 10 years and it hasn't
Hmm.
happened. That is not project management. Now,
Okay.
I have seen in the same place, I have seen 100 plus flyovers come up between 1990 to 1994. Where was technology then? So, what's wrong? Where is the difference? There is something else which is going wrong. And what is going wrong is the project management is going wrong, if we describe
Okay.
correctly. But technology doesn't necessarily help, but the way you execute is the key to it.
Okay. So then tell us, you also travel a lot abroad. What's the difference? How do you compare project management or projects being executed in India and outside? Must Please share those best practices and the learnings for us.
So, Ajay, this is something I should promote, and this is something you learn as soon as you step your foot outside your own home country.
Yeah.
And the name of the game is how does adversity help a project? My first finding, and that is something which repeats on my mind whenever I'm overseas, is there's every damn resource available in the place we were born and
Okay.
in the place we inhabit, we are citizens of. When you're overseas, the first thing which comes to your mind is this abundance of adversity. All resources are not available, but still, the success of the projects is not in the same scale of availability of resources like we should expect. So, if everything is available in a place, why do so many projects fail?
Right.
Failure is a very clear definition we should understand. And in other places where there's so much of adversity, resources not available, people coming from overseas, what is the reason that projects succeed? You would say money. I won't say money. That's not the reason.
Money part we will come on. Well, I'll
We'll
ask
come to
about
the money
why
part. We'll come.
it's about others'
Yes,
money and not your own money, because
it is.
project
It is.
failure means, yeah, others' money have gone down the drain.
Yes.
Yes.
So the adversity, you nowadays there's a new requirement when we interview people. There's a very good requirement we express. We ask them, so what is the sacrifice you're ready to give? Because I can do everything, but I am not ready to sacrifice. Adversity plays a very good role in making you work towards the success of a project. This is something which I've learned myself. But I want to put on record what are the real prime reasons which the world studies and brings forth. Even if you have resources, the biggest probable reason why projects have failed across the world is not resources and money. It is because of the lack of communication.
Okay.
This is documented proof. People doing thesis on project management that when you don't collaborate properly, when you fight a lot, when you don't collaborate towards seeing the end of the project in the positive way, projects do not see the right end. That is the first prime major reason why projects fail across the world, not only here or abroad.
So Rishi, who one can blame when a project fail? If communication is the biggest reason, then who should the buck stop at? Who is the bad communicator in that whole stuff? You
Very
know?
nice. See, this is coming from a function which is not project management. It is a subcomponent of project management, and it is called project controls.
Project?
Controls, PC, project
Okay,
controls.
okay, okay,
I've been a project controls manager at various places, various projects where I work. And say, for instance, Ajay Kudania is running a project. He has invested multi-million dollars on the project, and the project is going to end in March 2022. And I come to Ajay and say, Ajay, sorry, we have failed. And
No,
that
I'm
won't
just
be,
smiling at the multi-million dollars thing.
yes. So that is, so you see, whose money was it? It was your money. And who was responsible for telling you in March that the project has succeeded? Me. So what I'm trying to express over here is projects don't fail all of a sudden.
Oh,
The responsibility of project controls or the team managing the project is to start expressing about the health of the project right from the day the project kicks off.
okay.
I would have done more justice to Ajay if over the last 2 years when I ran this project, every week, every fortnight, every month, I was correctly forecasting that we are not going to meet the right end. I cannot come in March 22 and tell Ajay that we are going bust. So here what is important is what is the yardstick for failure on projects? This is very important. The important thing is the yardstick for failure is oriented around two arms. If you go from our Bible, which is PMBOK, that is project management body of knowledge, the yardstick for failure is oriented around the time scale and it is oriented around the budget. If I finish the project before the scheduled completion date, or at least on the scheduled completion date, I've done justice. Project is not a failure.
Okay.
And if I finish the project on budget, or at least saving something from the budget, the project is not a failure.
Okay. Okay.
And it doesn't happen all of a sudden on the day the project is being completed. It happens right from the day the project kicks off. Because during the course of that timeline, as the project is unfolding, as the uncertainties are becoming more and more clear, you have the right, as a project controller, you have the right to express to the whole world, not only to your principals, the stakeholders, you have the right to express to the whole world what are the reasons, what are the components affecting the health of the project. Okay, I said that there was a project which has lasted much more than its original time. Okay, define the reasons, but you don't define the reasons on the final day. You define those reasons as the project progresses. And then you've done justice to your job. You've not done justice to your job until and unless you have kept that stereotype very well communicated to every stakeholder. And that is why what they found when the projects fail, usually, God forbid they should not fail, communication plays the biggest part of this whole story.
Okay. So Rishi, you said that project controls is the one who actually, should be looking out for communication, isn't it? Am I right?
Exactly. Yes.
So project controls is like a family doctor from day
No,
one.
no, the project controls is a journalist.
And that's, yeah. So tell me one thing here.
The project
Uh,
controls is a journalist because he
okay.
relays the health of the project regularly. You know who's the family doctor? The family doctor is the person executing the project. And we
Okay.
don't mingle. Between the executors and the planners and the controllers, we don't mingle. We only take their brain and put it on paper. You get my point?
Okay.
So the project controls is the journalist. He should correctly relay the health of the project. Imagine the journalist is making wrong proclamations, and where is the public going? You get my point?
Okay. I got it. I got it. So then after the project, you talked about failure of a project before time. If it is, then it's a success. Then after the project, If it fails, who takes the blame? And if it bomb, if it's a success, then who takes the credit? Because success has always got everyone taking that, and failure is an orphan. How do you see that sitting there?
See, this is pertinent to every part of life, and I'll quote two very good stories behind this. When you learn controlling or monitoring or managing these projects, as a very good analogy, somebody put it on one of the webinars that project management is equivalent to flying an aircraft. And you
Okay.
answer for yourself, how many times does an aircraft not reach its destination? 99.99% times there's a success in flying an aircraft. You know why? The reason is the analogy between project management and flying an aircraft is, if you see the framework of project management, is it's divided into various phases. There's an initiation phase, there's a planning phase, there's an execution phase, there's a monitoring phase, and there's a completion phase. So the guy who described so beautifully, somebody in a pilot in the US Air Force, he says, I walk into the cockpit and I do my initial study of the plane. That is the initiation. And then I plan. I plan means I have the schedule in front of me and I get to know which way the winds are flowing and then how I have to take, what is the trajectory. And then I taxi, I take off, I be on the autopilot, then I bring down, when I reach the destination, I have to do the necessary documentation, which is the closure of the project. Beautiful analogy between flying an aircraft, and believe me, 99.9% times that project of flying an aircraft is successful, but 99% is not the recorded history of success of projects on the ground. Similarly, in 1875, mind you, in 1875, there was a great book written which was called Mysterious Island.
Okay. Mysterious.
Mysterious Island.
Okay.
Mysterious Island. So
Okay.
it's about a crew who has lost their way and they've landed into a mysterious island and they have to come out of it.
Okay.
They are
I thought
fully
I read about Treasure Island, but Mysterious Island, yes. But I
mysterious.
guess.
Mind you, he says it was 1875 when they wrote it.
Yeah, yeah,
And it speaks about all the uncertainties which came their way before the crew found their way and they reached their destination where they should have.
yeah. Right, right.
That is project management. Now, since you asked me about the sense of achievement, of success, or failure, at the end of every project, there is a necessary requirement of documenting the success or failure of that project.
Yeah.
We call them lessons learned. And when we document them, it's a history, it's a code of record for future projects to operate under better conditions, under better framework. And it is a team who compares the plan versus actual, the reasons for the gaps. Now, who should take the responsibility is a very easy answer because it's the team who takes the responsibility. The team was given the whole accountability for successful completion of the project. But the issue behind the failure is, with the passage of time, are we taking account of so much of volumes of knowledge which has been given to the industry to follow that framework, to adopt to the tools and techniques, to remember the processes, to remember the responsibilities, and how to come into that aspect of delivering them successfully. So there is no big, uncertainty about who's responsible, who takes the responsibility. After all, The loser is the investor. Because when we walk into projects, if we are, say, we are working as employees on the project, the last thing we worry about is our salary. And
Right.
the more, the number of days the project runs, the more happier we are because we get our salary. Somehow or the other, you have to come out of that stigma of being an employee on the project,
Okay.
and you have to adapt more so. Now we hear a lot about this, being an entrepreneur working on that project,
Right.
caring about the money of the investor, something which comes from your own psyche, not necessarily because over 200 years, 250 years, somehow or the other, this part of the world has been dragged down on being taking pride of being an employee to someone. But the moment you think about you being the owner of the project, the entrepreneur running the project, you understand the value of that, and your delivery model altogether changes. It's a big concept to accept and adapt, but definitely we are positively moving towards it. There are a lot of changes happening, which will definitely help the cause.
Right. So now talking about, money and all that stuff, uh, I come to the bigger question now, and that's the topic actually, because it was important to understand for a lot of people what project management is all about. Is whose money is it anyway? Means the project uh, obviously is belongs to someone else, but as you said, that people have to get that entrepreneur mindset and rather not as employees, because when you look at it as an employee, you find it's better that the project keeps on
Right.
running.
Yep.
That does not work. So why is it so important to always remember that it is someone else's money when executing a project? That's the topic of the
100%.
larger question that we needed to discuss today, and please
Exactly.
emphasize on that.
Look, as I said, project management runs on two legs. One is the schedule aspect, and one is the cost aspect. Now, how this framework works, if we adopt PMBOK specifically, is like I'm the project manager walking into the project on the first day. I've been handed over the project, so I see because the people who won the project, they have won under certain conditions. So the project manager first studies it and he writes a charter out of that project. And when he writes the charter, he gets a sanction from the project owners or the financiers or the whoever has sponsored the project. It is their money, but that sponsor could be the government, that could be a public company, that could be a private organization. So when he gets a sanction, he tells them, because he owns the project manager owns the project.
Right.
He gets the sanction from that charter. Okay, you have given me a project, you have studied so and so things, you have forgotten to study certain things, and I understand the project not in your way, I understand it in my way. These are going to be the requirements. Give me X, Y, and Z resources. And he submits the charter and he takes the responsibility of executing the project and ensuring that it completes, it doesn't fail. And from there, he kickstarts the exact process of managing this project to see it a successful, give it a successful end. So that is the way things should be oriented. Having a project manager, having a name to the project, having got the sanction for the charter, and after having got the sanction for the charter, he details the project, he forms his own team. He is allowed to use his own team, the best team he can be made available, and then he kickstarts and works on the project, on the success of the project. Now, in this course of doing the execution, the prime responsibility of the project manager delivering on time parallelly, it is to deliver the project under the destined budget. So it is like the project cost was $1 billion when we won the project, and the project manager has been told that you are going to complete it in 800 million, that is 0.8 billion. The project manager then he vouches for 700 million or 750 million. So he has some kind of clarity with all the uncertainties still hanging. He has some kind of a clarity that he'll be able to deliver in certain time and certain cost. So the entire framework allows you to honestly accept the project and deliver the project under those guidelines. But there's no taking away. He is also a new person. There's no taking away from the poor project manager. Should uncertainties and should problems exaggerate, I'll quote a project we did recently. And after we planned, in the stage of planning the project, we realized that there was a lot of stoppage coming from somebody else, a much bigger party, who was already executing some other functions in our areas of work. And we suffered enormous number of stoppages, which could have derailed, and which could have made the project a failure. Obviously, it does increase the anxiety, it does increase the amount of pressure on the executing party as well as the controlling party. But then the purpose of regularly monitoring, forecasting, and then replanning on a day-to-day scale is that we make all efforts to win the game. So it is project management is a very long standing match. So you call it any kind of a match. Where do you get the sense of achievement from? You can only get the sense of achievement from winning that game. So the team is already inside. The team has to win and come out of the game. So if
Okay.
that kind of commitment, if that kind of accountability, if that kind of responsibility is not bestowed onto the team, and you do not have a clear leader bailing you in the right direction, that's a project manager. These are the things which make the project successful or unsuccessful. See, there will be certain unforeseen uncertainties always cropping up. We call them known unknowns and unknown unknowns. So when
But
those unknown unknowns crop up, what do we do? So experience comes into play when those unknown unknowns come up. Howsoever you plan, howsoever you account for what is going to come during the project, these unknown unknowns will always come up. So it is like you called 10 guests to your party at your home and you have 14 walking in. So how do you take care of the adversities? You always attend them and you come out successful. And that is what is going to happen on every project.
right. Rishi, then I guess it's about mindset also. What do you say on this? It's about how do you deal with that? How do you change that? Because uh, if somebody thinks it's better that the project keeps on running, and a lot of people start thinking that it is practically good for us because we'll be employed in this project, so everybody seems to be on the same side except for the person who has put on his money. So how do you deal with that sort of a mindset?
See, I believe the mindset part is very well taken care of when you hire experience and you hire, you know, qualifications, qualified people. So that mindset part, normally, more often than not, it takes care of the thing. But it's very important to keep the tempo, the motto of the project very high. I've been normally, it's the project life is such that you have a lot of errands coming your way, people getting very upset and people getting a lot of stressed up. There are ways and means of partying on the weekends and then being part of a lot of appreciation, a lot of raffles and other things taking place during the projects because you're away from home, and then a lot of facilities being provided which the budget allows for during the thing to keep the tempo very high. We've been on projects where they've run marathons and half marathons and multinational nationalities running on those, and entire days being allocated for doing the prize distribution, etc. So all those things keep the tempo very high. We've been on projects wherein some very special guests were called to deliver lectures. I mean, we had couple there on one of the projects in Qatar, and then the next time the same event was taking place, it was Zinedine Zidane coming in and addressing the masses. So that is something like it's very common to projects. Then to keep the tempo very high, some of the fantastic things we've seen is we had a Palestinian project manager addressing the entire gathering of 20,000 people or so, and he starts his address mentioning that, why I like India, and he explains to the labor generally, and he says that you are the best example in the entire universe for unity in diversity. And you see, there's the people who understand, tears rolling down their eyes. See, he speaks so high about my country. I mean, I'm just quoting certain examples which I've seen with my own eyes. You have to keep the motivation very high.
Yes,
There
yes, but
are
yeah, carry on, carry on.
so there and on projects, unfortunately, there can be instances where there are unwanted things happening, fatalities, etc. So they have some exceptional concepts like having stand downs, re-explaining, you starting the meter from zero again, so keeping the people motivated. I mean, these are concepts which are practiced across the world. It's not only overseas or in India. Safety
Yes,
concepts, giving a lot of boost to doing best practices. These are the things. A project life goes on hand in hand, exactly the way our life goes on here.
right,
So
right.
that's where they can get.
But coming back to the question that it is somebody else's money in the project, तो have you seen anybody telling कि भैया किसी और का पैसा है ध्यान रखो, and secondly, अपना प्रोजेक्ट को खींचना नहीं है, and do you do it in
See,
your own projects?
see. This is it is about the kind of projects you deal with. Now, when we run into very snapshot, very fast running projects, we are often, what you're saying is right, we are often reminded. Like, for instance, I go planning for a project and I say it's going to take 72 hours to do this job. The response from the generally in the energy industry, the response is, can you make it 48 hours? Because in those 24 hours, the unit is going to lose so many million.
Okay.
So, as I said in the beginning, these industries are very well organized. They count every dollar, they count every minute of it. And the back calculation towards time is so prominent there. They know if I switch off a particular unit or a component, the company loses so many $1 million. I like that concept because if I don't build a bridge in the designated 6 months of time, who's losing the money? There has to be certain education on, okay, this bridge which was to be built in 6 months' time, prolonged for 9 months or a year, it means not only the toll, but the loss of opportunity, loss of the interest on the money being sourced, all those account for a definite loss. It's a part of our education system. You and I are not educated not to be so much to neglect these concepts or aspects. It is somebody's money means, okay, it may be public money, but how do we ourselves become responsible to account for that? So that accountability has to set in. I mean, that really affects the success, and it also affects the purity, the sanctity of how the project controllers are executing those projects.
Right, right. Uh, I get some sense of this whole concept of project management. Uh, my last, you know, question, not question, but just like any closing thoughts that you want to share for somebody who is starting out as a project, you know, part of any project, almost like an intern,
Okay.
from a veteran like you, or and to people who are also doing projects.
Right.
What would you want to tell them? It's my last
See, this
question.
is I would always motivate people to uh, borrow a few leaves from whatever these PMBOK and other institutes are extending to the world. There's some exceptional work being done. But I already quoted the example of comparing it with the flight path, or comparing it with the um, book on treasure, on not treasure, the mysterious island. Some of them compare it with the game of golf. Project management field is an exceptional field to work on. And why I say so is because uh, it really helps you to hone your skills being multitaskers. This is you play with a lot of uncertainty, and you become a real good multitasking professional. Of course, project management PMI themselves do not promote multitasking because it's really very rugged, but it helps you in the long run to be exceptionally ready to do multiple tasks at the same time. And for me in particular, the motivating factor is I've been running the the shop which I started with. Even I could have settled down in that shop 25, 30 years ago. I didn't. And then somewhere in the year 2010, I ventured into being an entrepreneur, which was my aim at promoting my wife, who was running, who had founded a educational institute. So we are running that parallelly. But my mojo, my first love, still, even after all this, is project management. Because when
Okay.
I do them, I get so many new things to learn, so many fascinating people to meet. I worked across the Middle East, and I've worked with more than 50 nationalities of the world. And this would never have happened had I stuck to my guns and being a family business player. So, what I want the listeners and the onlookers to uh, take inspiration from is this is an exceptionally good field, and you get a lot of achievement from delivering these deliverables. One very important thing I want to mention, which I learned on the job, is who's the real planner, who's the real giant on the project. Never forget that all this starts at the top.
Right.
The top man, the one liner is the top man is the most well groomed, most seasoned planner sitting on the project, the owner, the stakeholder, and the control of the project flows downwards. This is my statement. I make it everywhere. So,
Okay.
planning or project controls, project management starts at the top. Never forget that. It is his money. He delegates it, and the control flows downwards. Nobody in between can bail out a bad going project, a failing project. But the top people are so well organized. They delegate it so properly. Their communication is so clear. They set the tone so well that projects will succeed on their own. All you got to do is justify your position being in whatever role you are. It is not that you, as somebody in between, are going to plan it. It starts all at the top. Just honor that responsibility or that accountability, and the chain will remain complete. Don't be a weak section in that chain, because the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So don't be a weak link in between. Just honor the commitments throughout, and the project succeed.
Right. Right. On that note, Rishi, it's a wrap on this edition of the KAJ Masterclass. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you so much. Before you wind up, Ajay, you are doing an exceptional job. I'm very, very poised, and I've been listening to all those contestants who are coming to your show. And I wish you a lot of luck. I wish we be there again in a while, and I would myself be very poised on sending you some exceptional professionals who can help your cause grow. Thank you so much for having me, and it was really nice time. I don't know how we spent 1 hour over here, and have a nice day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.